She stepped inside to purchase a vehicle. He informed her she wasn't wanted there. The following day, her husband's phantom pulled up out front. Pam Bondi hadn't intended to draw attention, not like that. It was a Tuesday, warm and breezy, the sort of Miami day that begged you to ease up and take the scenic route back home. She was dressed in a cream blazer over a light blue top. Nothing ostentatious, just neat and self-assured. Her heels tapped gently as she passed through the glass doors of one of the city's priciest car dealerships, nestled between a sleek furniture gallery and an upscale coffee joint. No cameras, no helpers, just her. She didn't want a salesperson hovering or someone rattling off figures about engines or upholstery details. She'd done her homework. What she sought was someone subtle, someone who could assist her in arranging a bespoke birthday present for her husband. A man of few words, but who glowed like a child around anything with wheels and strength. Grade preferred his cars like he liked his politics, timeless, refined, and boldly American. She lingered by a black Bentley, positioned on an elevated platform. Her phone hummed. She let it go unanswered. A young woman at the glass reception desk glanced up, hesitated, then lifted a slim cordless phone and murmured something too soft to catch. Pam didn't catch it. She was tracing her fingers along the seat stitching, lost in a daydream of her husband's face when he'd see the car. Then came footsteps. "Ma'am, can I assist you with anything?" The voice was young, male, even courteous. Pam turned. "Yes, actually. I'd like to talk to someone about a custom order. I saw your phantom options online, and I want to design something particular for my husband's birthday." He cut in. "I know who you are." That halted her. Pam sized him up. He looked late 20s, hair cropped tight on the sides, navy polo with the dealership's stitched emblem. Something in his gaze had changed. The polite grin had vanished. What took its place wasn't quite hostility, but it sure wasn't friendly either. "Pardon me?" she asked, steady but wary. He scanned the room, then leaned in a bit closer, dropping his voice just for her ears. "You're Pam Bondi, right? From Florida. Trump's legal crew." She gave a slow nod. "I'm sorry, but we reserve the right to refuse service. This dealership has a certain vibe and type of customer. We stand for inclusion, tolerance, and diversity." Pam tilted her head a fraction. "And how exactly does that rule me out?" The young man didn't waver. "Some of your connections don't match the principles we uphold. We've had clients voice unease before when certain political names show up here. We just want to keep this a safe space." Safe space? Pam blinked, more startled than upset. For a second, it felt unreal, like someone testing a script they hadn't fully bought into. But he wasn't kidding. "So you're telling me I'm not welcome here?" she asked. "I'm saying," he answered, "we'd rather you shop somewhere else." Other patrons started to peek over. No one spoke, but the quiet crackled like electricity. Pam's gaze swept the room once. Her lips tightened. She gave a single soft nod and turned for the glass doors. Her heels clicked on the marble again, fainter now. She didn't glance back. Outside, she drew a deep breath. The Florida humidity cloaked her, but her expression stayed steady. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and headed to her car. She didn't weep, didn't post online. She just drove off. But what she didn't realize was that Greg, her husband, was already plotting something that would flip the whole scene upside down. Greg Bondi was home when Pam stepped through the door. Their place sat just beyond Coral Gables, hidden behind a line of royal palms, with broad windows and floors that echoed with heeled steps. He was in the kitchen, pouring iced tea, sleeves pushed up. The man rarely got loud, unless a game was on or a car jack wobbled. She placed her purse on the entry table. "You're back early," he said, eyes still down. Pam paused, slipped off her shoes, then moved into the kitchen. "Yeah." Plans changed. Greg turned. His face shifted at once. "What's wrong?" She let out a slow breath, rested against the counter, and recounted every detail, every glance, every word still sharp in her mind. Specific culture, safe space, clients expressed discomfort. Greg listened, still as rock, save for the slow clench of his hand around the glass. He didn't cut in. That wasn't his style. When she was done, he stared at the counter for a beat, then asked, "You get the guy's name?" No name tag. Tall, young, couldn't have been past 28. Greg's jaw shifted once, like he was mulling over. Did he yell? He asked. No, kept it quiet, like he was being noble. Greg nodded once. Good. That keeps it simpler. Pam arched a brow. Simpler. He was already heading for the living room, grabbing his phone as he went. She trailed him. Greg, don't blow this up. I won't. He stopped, looked back at her. But I'm not letting some 20-something clerk with a chip and a company badge treat you like you stumbled into a biker den wearing the wrong patch. Pam cracked a faint smirk. I can handle my own fights. You did, he said. You left with your chin up, more than most would manage. He scrolled his contacts, stopped, and tapped. Pam leaned in the doorway. Who are you calling? Greg put it on speaker. A voice answered. Maxwell Imports. This is Devon. Devon, Greg said. It's Greg Bondi. Devon's tone flipped instantly. Greg. Been months. You still rolling that ghost I hooked you up with? Yeah. Still purring like day one. Listen, I need a Phantom, full custom, delivered to Miami. And I need it here by tomorrow afternoon. Devon paused. Tomorrow, Greg. That's. Tell the plant I'll cover rush fees. Color. Obsidian black. Interior. Deep caramel leather. Walnut trim. Lamb's wool mats. Full rear comfort setup. You know how my wife likes her legroom. Devon whistled low. You for real. Greg's voice was calm but firm. Dead serious. Devon didn't pry. All right, I'll pull some strings. Anything else? Greg glanced at Pam. Make sure it's dropped straight at Palmetto Lux Motors on Miracle Mile. No delays. No parking. Roll it off the truck right at their showroom. Have someone film it. Devon laughed. I see where this is headed. It's handled. Greg hung up, turned to Pam, and slid the phone into his pocket. She crossed her arms. You're staging a spectacle. No, he said. I'm proving a point. She stepped toward him, slower, pensive. You're dropping nearly $500,000 to school a kid who probably can't spell amortization. Greg shrugged. I'm not doing it for him. He brushed past her, opened the patio door, and stepped out by the pool. The air carried hints of chlorine and flowering jasmine. Pam stayed inside, arms still folded, torn between a laugh and an eye roll. But deep down, she got it. It wasn't about payback, or even politics. It was about honor, showing folks that grace didn't mean surrender. But that was only part of it, because by the next afternoon, what went down at that dealership wouldn't just stay in Miami. It was about to break way past the city limits. Mugs in the kitchen. Pam sat at the breakfast bar, skimming emails. Her phone had stayed mostly quiet overnight. No notifications, no news blasts, no social media hum, just as she preferred. Greg had left early for a meeting, but not before leaving a small handwritten note on the counter. Let them show who they are. We'll show them who we are. Gee, she smiled faintly at it, folded it, and slipped it into her wallet. Pam wasn't new to this. She'd been labeled everything under the sun. A punchline, a partisan, a turncoat, a warrior. It shifted with the day and the headlines. But this felt different, not because of the slight itself, but how offhand it had been, like being sized up before she even settled in. And that stung in a quiet corner of her soul. She checked the clock. 11 o'clock a.m. She wasn't anticipating anything, but the calm made her restless, not afraid, just alert. Then her phone buzzed, a text from Greg. Watch Palmetto Lux's Instagram in about 5 minutes. She frowned. What's he cooking up? She opened the app. The dealership's feed was mostly glossy showroom pics, monthly deal plugs, and star shoutouts. But at the top, a red ring pulsed around their profile. They were Louvre. She tapped it. The footage wobbled at first, shot by a young staffer outside the glass doors. It was midstream. A big truck was reversing up to the entrance, flanked by two employees who looked baffled. One of them, Pam, clocked him, the same young manager from the day before. Live comments kicked off. Why they unloading out front? Is that a phantom? Who's that for? Look at those rims. The truck's rear hissed open, and out rolled a jet black Rolls-Royce Phantom, gleaming, flawless under the Florida sun, like it was carved from oil and crystal. No dealership logo, no test drive sticker. It was already tagged, the nameplate in the windshield reading, "For Mr. Greg Bondi, paid in full." No press statement, no spokesperson, no fuss, just delivery. The camera caught the young manager again. His face went ashen, his lips stayed shut. Another worker leaned in, muttered something, and his posture stiffened. Someone off-screen asked, "Who ordered that?" The camera swung, a silver sedan pulled into the lot behind the truck. A man stepped out. Greg. Dark jacket, shades on, face unreadable. He didn't wave or grin. He just strode to the car, opened the door, slid in, and tweaked the seat like it was routine. The young manager approached, clearly unsure what to say. The phone's mic barely picked it up. "You here to see someone?" he asked. Greg didn't even glance his way. He adjusted the rearview mirror, then said evenly, "No, I'm just here to remind you who you sent packing." The live feed cut off moments later. Pam stared at the screen, wordless. Her phone started buzzing again. Texts from friends, family, old law school buddies, even journalists she hadn't talked to in ages. "Was that your husband? They really booted you yesterday." "This is blowing up." She set the phone down and grabbed her coffee. No statements, no posts. She just sipped in silence, eyes on the garden outside. Greg got back 2 hours later. "Think that drove it home," he said, setting the keys softly on the counter. Pam eyed him. "It was a bit dramatic," he grinned. "So was how they brushed you off." She didn't push back, but neither of them foresaw how fast that video would spread, or what kind of tempest was about to brew online. By late afternoon, the clip had hit Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and a slew of private chats Pam would never join. It was reposted with wobbly voiceovers, snarky memes, and even slowed down takes of Greg's line, tagged with stuff like "chillest clapback of the year." Pam didn't have to say a word. People were speaking for her. Meanwhile, the dealership tried to mop up. Their Instagram went dark, comments disabled. The original live yanked within hours. But it was too late. Copies were all over. Even a local blogger dashed off a piece titled, "Miami Lux dealer rejects conservative name, gets phantom drop in reply." And it was catching heat. Inside the dealership, behind the smoked glass, the vibe flipped quick. The young manager, his name was Aidan Brody, was pacing his office. He wasn't just edgy, he was spooked. He'd gone rogue. The dealership had no formal political line. His words to Pam, personal, and now it was about to cost them. A senior exec from their parent firm had already roamed twice. "Why'd you say that?" She snapped over speakerphone. I was shielding the space," Aidan stuttered. "She's polarizing. I thought it'd upset people." "You thought," she barked. "You thought you could speak for the whole outfit. You don't think, Aidan, you follow policy. And now your little speech has us trending for the ugliest reasons possible." He rubbed his forehead. "I didn't know her husband was loaded. I didn't expect him to buy a $500,000 ride and park it on our doorstep." "Yeah, well," she shot back. "Neither did we." She hung up. Out in the showroom, the staff was buzzing low. Customers still trickled in, acting nonchalant, but sneaking looks at the Phantom, now parked across the street. It hadn't budged since delivery. A few workers started cracking quiet jokes behind the coffee bar. "Man, she got bounced one day, then dropped a Rolls the next." She didn't drop it. Her husband did. "Same diff. That's love, dude." In his office, Aidan sank into his chair and glared at his screen. He drafted an email apology 3 ways before scrapping it. Across town, Pam and Greg were back on their patio. "I should have seen it coming," she said. "I've been a political piñata for years. Someone always has a jab." Greg leaned back, letting the sky dim above. "That's not the issue." She glanced at him. Greg went on. "Folks can hate your stance, disagree with your moves, but when a kid in a logoed polo thinks it's his gig to play bouncer at a showroom, he's not taking a stand, he's making a clown show." Pam eyed the glass in her hand. "Still, I didn't want the spotlight. This whole thing, it feels small time." Greg shifted his head slightly. "What small time is getting shamed for breathing?" She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Inside, the news was starting to nibble. A Fort Lauderdale reporter wanted a quote. Conservative bloggers spun it as proof of corporate slant. A few even floated boycotts, though Pam privately sighed at those. She wasn't out for blood. She wasn't aiming to play saint. She just wanted to get her husband a birthday car. That's what cut deepest. And Greg, he never said it outright, but the move was less about settling scores than standing firm, a way of saying, "You're not in this solo. I've got your back." He grabbed his phone later that night, sent one more text to Devon, the broker. "Thanks. Delivery was spot on. Don't say a word publicly. This wasn't a photo op." Devon shot back. "Got it. But FYI, that clip's exploding." Greg replied. "Let it." But while the web played judge and the dealership flailed behind closed doors, something bigger was starting to stir. And not just online. The public was tuning in close now, and lines were being drawn. The next morning, Palmetto Lux Motors opened at 10 a.m. sharp like clockwork, but the air felt off. Customers weren't just strolling in to browse or quiz about warranties. They were peering around, whispering, asking, "Is this the spot from the video?" Two guys in their 20s rolled in, rocking aviators and cargo shorts. Not your usual crowd for a dealership with a $300,000 floor price. They marched to the front desk and asked, "Hey, where's the Phantom from the clip?" The receptionist forced a tight smile. "That car's been relocated." "Damn," one muttered. "Would have been dope to check it out." They split without even snagging a flyer. In the manager's office, Aidan Brody was unraveling. The corporate email chain had ballooned overnight. Words like liability, brand hit, and client bias pinged between suits. Someone from legal demanded a full log of every customer exchange from the past week. The dealership's GM, an older guy named Trent, who usually hung back, finally stepped into Aidan's office and shut the door. "Tell me word for word what you said to her." Aidan's mouth went dry. "I told her we can refuse service. That her being there might rattle other clients." Trent crossed his arms. "You said that to Pam Bondi, in a dealership built on client ties. She's a hot button name. I figured. You figured wrong." Aidan had no comeback. There wasn't a spin where he came out clean. Outside, another customer asked to talk to someone about the car in the video. When told the Phantom was gone, the guy shrugged and bounced without a peep. Meanwhile, across Miami, in a hushed conference room on the 18th floor of a law firm overlooking Biscayne Bay, Pam sat with a friend. Marta Gibbons, a retired judge turned advisor. No cameras, no attorneys, just coffee between two women who'd seen power slack off firsthand. Marta sipped slow. "Sure you don't want to weigh in?" Pam shook her head. "If I speak, it's a brawl. Then they get to cry victim." "Fair. But people are chattering. They want your take." Pam leaned back. "They're coloring it in just fine without me." Marta watched her a moment, then nodded. "You always knew how to ride out a squall." Pam gave a half grin. "I just learned when quiet's cheaper." Meanwhile, the dealership's woes were piling up. A local channel ran a brief piece that night, titled "Did Politics Get Bondi Barred from Buying a Car?" It wasn't kind. The footage showed the delivery truck, the stunned faces, the car easing down the ramp, voiceover tiptoed between legal fine print and public vibe. Then the calls started. Customers bailed on appointments. A big-ticket buyer pushed back a pickup till the dealership cleared up its position. A luxury SUV slated for collection sat on the lot, untouched. Trent called a staff huddle that night. "We don't pick teams," he said, deadpan. "We sell cars. We build trust. That's our mark. And whatever this was, that wasn't it." Nobody named Aiden, but everyone knew. Later that evening, Greg pulled into their driveway. He'd taken the Phantom out for its first real spin, just around town. A few stares, a couple of nods from folks who didn't even grasp what they saw. He walked in, dropped the keys on the counter, and found Pam in the living room, flipping through news on low volume. "Catch the Channel 7 bit?" he asked. She nodded quick. He sat beside her. "You good?" She paused a beat. "It's odd. The video didn't show what went down inside, just the comeback, and somehow that did it." Greg looked at her. It did more than that, but the internet wasn't finished. And while Pam kept mum, more voices, big and small, started chiming in. Suddenly the story wasn't just about a car. It was about who gets treated how, and what happens when the script flips. 3 days post-delivery, Pam's name was trending again, not from a presser, not from her saying a peep, but because someone tagged her in a screenshot from a private Facebook group. It was a post by a woman named Karen Finley, a Miami local who'd been in the dealership the day Pam got turned away. She hadn't clocked Pam at first, but after the video, it clicked. Her post read, "I was there that day." She didn't snap, didn't get loud. She just walked out. "I didn't even know who she was then. But now I wish I'd spoken up." Within hours, the post racked up thousands of shares. News outlets latched on. Suddenly the tale had legs again. It wasn't just a clip anymore. It was a storyline. A woman slighted not by insults but by attitude, by the notion she didn't fit, and the public was gobbling it up. Folks started filming themselves hashing it out. Some sided with the dealership, others fumed. One TikTok, a stitched clip of the Walk of Shame flipped into Walk of Pride, hit over 3 million views in a day. Still, Pam stayed silent. No tweets, no sit-downs. She met pals, grabbed lunch, took calls, and every time someone asked, "You gonna speak on it?" her answer held firm, "No." But behind the curtain, her quiet roared. Rands reached out. A watchmaker offered a free piece. A private car club pitched a lifetime pass. A conservative think tank wondered if she'd leverage the moment for a soapbox. She passed on all of it. "This isn't a gimmick," she told Greg. "I just wanted to get you a car." He grinned. "Well, you got me a car and a masterclass."